So can you please close the door? We're getting started. So, welcome to today's meeting of our Grundlagenvorlesung, Energy Empires, Verflechtungen, Ressourcen und Konflikte in Osteuropa. So today I'm going to present to you some policy research I have performed with colleagues from the energy sector in Turkey on green hydrogen transitions and EU-Turkey relations. So as you know, Russia's war in Ukraine and the dependence of EU and Turkey on natural oil and on Russian oil and natural gas have brought the green hydrogen transition into the forefront of energy policy debates. And of course, the question is why the green hydrogen? Why the green hydrogen has become such an important question for the solution of the energy puzzle that is currently faced by the European economies and the global economy. And here today, in this discussion and presentation, we will aim at providing answers to this very important issue. So, and of course, the main question that we ask is why hydrogen? Why hydrogen has been such an important component also of Germany's and Europe's international energy policy? Why the so-called Wasserstoffdiplomatie that has been recently inaugurated by the German Foreign Office lies in the epicenter, and what is the role of Turkey in it? So hydrogen's abundance and ability to eliminate approximately 68% of global emissions make it attractive both for business leaders and policymakers. And of course, the question is how can Turkey become part of this European strategy? The centrality of the Turkish economy in the global network of energy transition is a major strategic advantage for the country's energy transition perspectives. The Turkish economy has been very active in the last 15 years in increasing the production of renewable-based electricity, primarily through a significant technological change in the areas of wind energy, solar energy, and hydroelectric power. And of course, the big question is, how can this happen? Why are we considering it, and to what extent this energy transition is actually feasible? Globally, the BRICS economies, and among the most important of them are China, India, and Brazil, are the most likely to introduce green hydrogen for electricity production. And Turkey, as a major emerging market on the at the borders of the European Union, has the potential to take the lead ahead of several European countries because of its multifaceted geography and massive electricity demand. And can somebody tell me what do we mean by multifaceted geography? So how Turkey's geography is multifaceted or very different from one region to another. What are the regions that Turkey covers which allow for different types of microclimates, for different types of natural resources that allow this transition when it comes to green hydrogen? So what can somebody suggest that? So Turkey is, in what sense is interesting from a climate perspective in that sense? And when we're talking about climate, we're talking about water abundance or water resources, we're talking about sun, and we're talking about wind power. Does anybody have some sense of Turkey's geography in that respect? Yes, your name? Yes, Rizan Azin, yes? Rezan?
They have some bigger geological like to the east of Turkey, there are mountainous regions, waters.
So we have mountainous regions in the northeast, right, on the borders with the Caucasus countries, and also in the northern Black Sea. So the Trabzon area is an area, and also the area of Kars on the border with Armenia, right? So, and also Azerbaijan in the Nakhichevan region. So we do have a big endowment in water resources, which essentially points out in the direction of hydroelectric power potential. What about solar? Where do we expect in Turkey to have a higher potential for solar energy, based on what we can guess of its geography? Yes?
Southern country, so it's
So basically the southern districts of Turkey, so the Mediterranean region of Turkey, so Antalya, Adana, Hatay, for example, these are areas that are producing a big share of Turkey's agricultural exports, right? So all the tomatoes we eat here in Berlin come from that part of Turkey, so from the south, which is also the big tourist destination, as you know very well. So, and this is also, of course, the area where solar power is very much instrumental for agricultural development. And of course, yeah, there is, so the variable that we care about when we're talking about solar power is the sunlight. So how much sunlight we have per day in at a given district or province. And of course, yes, the south and the southeast, but also central Turkey are very much strong in that dimension. And when we're talking about wind power, where do we expect in Turkey to have high wind speeds? Usually we have wind when we are close to what? Yes?
close to the sea.
When we're close to the sea. So the Aegean region, so the area around Izmir, but also the areas around Bodrum, and of course, again, the southern areas of Turkey are also very important when it comes, and they have developed already a very high wind power potential. So we have some very interesting already geographic diversity in Turkey, which allows for the development of different renewable energy sectors and different types and different so dimensions of energy transition. So transitions from traditional fossil fuels to renewable energies. But why does that matter for green hydrogen? And what is the potential, or what is the advantage of green hydrogen compared to the traditional fossil fuels? Why has Europe, why has Germany decided that they really want to push this green hydrogen agenda? I mean, today we're talking about Turkey, but of course there are other economies at the borders of the European Union that are very important in that respect. Norway, for example, is also very important. I mean, there has been a recent agreement between the governments of Germany and Norway to create a green hydrogen pipeline that will connect the Norwegian Arctic to Germany. So why then green hydrogen? Why is green hydrogen so interesting? First of all, it has to do with the political crisis, obviously, that has erupted with Russia, which has made Russia a non-reliable partner of natural gas and oil, not because it does not deliver, but because of the political environment that has developed. But also in addition to the fact that the green hydrogen depends on what? Depends on renewable electricity. And why is renewable electricity as the basis for the production of green hydrogen so important? Because, as we know, I mean, a very important distinction when we're talking about energy resources is the distinction between depletable and non-depletable, the distinction between abundant and non-abundant natural resources. Resources that have a finite horizon, resources that can be exhausted in the near or the more distant future are usually more expensive. Whereas resources that are based on that have an abundant endowment that essentially cannot be exhausted, like energy that is based on natural factors such as the sun or the wind or water, are not likely to be exhausted, and therefore they can offer in the long run more efficient solutions. So with this thing in mind, that actually green hydrogen can resolve our energy security problem by making these, the sun, solar power, wind power, very relevant for our industrial production, we will discuss the role of green hydrogen in this complex setup of also EU-Turkish relations. So reducing global emissions, and of course, in addition to the issue of energy security, what we also need to keep in mind is the question of decarbonization. So this is a major policy goal of the European Commission, and green hydrogen is also crucial in that respect. So reducing global emissions and resolving the energy scarcity problem make renewable hydrogen more important than other types of hydrogen. So what is essentially the difference between green hydrogen and other types of hydrogen, like blue hydrogen or gray hydrogen? So blue hydrogen is produced through natural gas or oil, whereas green hydrogen is produced as a result of electrolysis, which is an industrial procedure that liquefies electricity as a result, renewable-based electricity. So this is very important, that green hydrogen can also be transported. Green hydrogen can essentially become a very powerful substitute to natural gas. And of course, this is yet the very important question. How do we, so green hydrogen in that sense can reduce the option value of natural gas, because up to now, we have been already 10 to 15 years into this very important wave of energy transitions. But so far, wind and solar power is primarily focused on agriculture, wind power, which is more relevant for industrial production, has not been able to replace natural gas or oil, and particularly natural gas. Oftentimes, instead of observing a reduction, we have observed a reduction of the share of natural gas in industrial production, but we have not reached yet a point where we can say that we do not need natural gas in order to produce. So this is why in several EU countries, the amount of available green power is, of course, so, and for that, of course, this is why so far, by staying where we are and not making the step forward with the green hydrogen, is a constraint, actually, for our industrial production. So, and of course, Turkey being an emerging economy and with having already an advanced renewable capacity, as we have already discussed, in different regions and through different technological advances, Turkey can cover both its domestic and also European energy demands. So, and as we know, the Russian-Ukrainian war has rendered the EU member states' energy dependence on Russian supplies a major uncertainty for the political cohesion of the EU, and green hydrogen therefore can alleviate the EU's energy dependence on Russia. But of course, transitions to green hydrogen are associated with significant infrastructure costs, which essentially explains the relatively low speed of green hydrogen transition. Here, I want us to see a bit a map of the world as we see it. And so this is the share of electricity production from renewables. The data is from the BP Statistical Review of World Energy. And here, what do we have? We have, so which countries are having, so which countries have a significantly high share of renewable-based electricity production. So what do we observe here? We have Canada, we have, Canada, in Latin America, we observe almost all Latin American countries, only Argentina is lagging behind, Brazil is very strong. So Sub-Saharan Africa, we observe also several countries in Asia. And what else do we observe? So we have also, of course, Turkey, and also we see Georgia. And this is yet another very interesting graph from the International Energy Agency. So we have the share of low carbon sources and coal in world electricity production. So what do we observe here? So we see that, so we have essentially a drop. So we see that in the end already, so where we are already, so actually this is a very interesting. So this purple curve that you see, it sums up the renewable sources of energy or of low carbon sources. So we see the big green is the other. So we see also wind power is actually increasing. Nuclear has also a big share. And so in other renewables, for example, we have biomass, we have hydro energy. And we see that shortly before 2020, renewable energies have taken over coal. So the energy transition is actually happening, and it spreads, as we have seen here, in several economies around the globe. Also in our area of interest, Eurasia, and we see that Turkey is a very important player in that respect as well. So here we have, again, another figure from the International Energy Agency. We have three different year intervals, so 2013 to 2007 to 2013, 2013 to 2019, and 2019 to 2025. So what do we observe here? So here what we have is the role of natural gas. How does the role of natural gas appear? Okay, we do have the energy transitions. We do observe that the role of renewable-based electricity is increasing. But what about the role of natural gas? Does it reduce, does this energy transition actually reduce the share of natural gas when it comes to its demand per sector? What do we observe here? Who wants to answer that question? So how do we observe these three histograms? What is the first reaction that we have? So we have the global natural gas demand per sector from 2007 to 2013, from 2013 to 2019, and from 2019 to 2025. So which bar from the three is bigger? The middle one we see, so from 2013 to 2019, we have a maximum, so this is the highest histogram that we see. And we see indeed that the global natural gas demand per sector, I mean also including the projection for the years up to 2025, is lower than the other two histograms, but not too much lower. And what are the sectors that we have? We have power generation, industry, residential and commercial use, the own use of energy industry, transport, and international marine bunkers, and so international marine bunkers, and also there is also a category for losses. So what do we see here? So let's focus on the three first categories: power generation, industry, and residential and commercial. So what do we observe here? We observe that natural gas is still very important. And the question is, of course, if the natural gas is still very important, then what's the point? Can we really get independent from natural gas? Is it really possible? I mean, we already have 15 years of green transitions, but still, we cannot get hold of natural gas. We cannot get rid of natural gas, actually. So it's still a super important element, a super important factor for global economic development. So the question is, how can green hydrogen help reduce this nexus of dependence from natural gas? So what I'm doing here first, I mean, I want to essentially offer a strategic environment here, and also, so I want you to think in two dimensions. First of all, I want you to think in the dimension of exactly this relationship between green hydrogen and natural gas. So how essentially green hydrogen can alleviate this nexus of dependence. And second, I want you to think in terms of suppliers and recipients of natural gas and of energy resources in this framework. So on the one hand, I want you to think about to what extent green hydrogen can actually substitute natural gas, because obviously wind power and solar power have not been able to substitute natural gas and its significance in global industries. And on the other hand, I want you to think about the political economy of natural gas supplies and the political economy of green energy transitions. Usually, I mean, and this political economy dimension is also very important, because whether we like it or not, if you see the list with the highest, the strongest natural gas producers around the globe, most of them are dictatorships. They're not democracies. And the biggest markets on the globe, so what are the biggest markets on the globe? These are the OECD economies as a sum, are democracies. So this political economy dimension is also crucial. So green hydrogen transitions can offer an opportunity for resource-dependent democracies to break their energy partnerships with resource-rich dictatorships. So collaboration with economies with moderate energy endowments in Africa or the MENA region may be easier than with dictatorships with a very high energy endowment like Russia. So the Turkish dilemma, of course, and also what is also very important is the extent to which Europe can actually or wants actually to integrate Turkey into this new energy agenda? This is also a very important element of this discussion. So do we want to have Turkey on our side when it comes to this energy transformation? And what are the policy implications of this for both the European and the Turkish economies? So Turkey's dilemma between stronger energy dependence on Russia and tighter integration into Western economies may also constitute a major geopolitical challenge, and it does constitute a major geopolitical challenge for policymakers in Ankara, the seat of the Turkish government. So, and of course, when it comes also to policy suggestions or policy ideas, the EU-Turkey cooperation in the production and transportation of green hydrogen could also advance bilateral policy coordination despite the various political setbacks. So, I mean, exactly. So now we have also this political economy dimension in mind, and I would like now to also discuss a bit more the role of the green hydrogen as a commodity of the future. So the hydrogen does not emit harmful byproducts when burned, like natural gas, for example, thus making it a potentially attractive clean fuel resource for mitigating climate change. It is exclusively bonded to other elements, notably in water and fossil fuels, which require processing to extract hydrogen and the energy from it. So, however, green hydrogen is not yet commercially competitive against blue hydrogen, so hydrogen that is being produced from fossil fuels. And this, of course, is a major challenge or can be a major obstacle for its widespread adoption. What is also very important, what is very important when it comes to green hydrogen, it's also its ability to store it. You cannot store the sun, you cannot store the wind, but you can really store the green hydrogen. So this is a game changer when it comes to energy security. So storing renewable energy in the form of hydrogen can assist in stabilizing the energy system, reduce transmission line investments, and also advance the deployment of solar and wind power. And furthermore, what is also very important is that natural gas networks, pipelines, can also be used for the transmission and transportation of green hydrogen. When it comes to the transformation, so Turkey, why Turkey? Why, for example, you can ask me why Turkey? I mean, in addition to the geography of Turkey, which shows, of course, a very interesting diversity. So this is a map that I have created. So with it's what we call in GIS a shape file. So this is from the Energy Atlas of Turkey, and what you see is basically the provinces of Turkey. So these are the internal borders. And what do we observe? So when it comes to the location of wind farms, wind power farms. So where are the turbines, like that you see also outside of Berlin, right? So where are the wind power farms, the wind power plants in Turkey? So as we have already seen, so they are mostly directed in the west, obviously close to the Aegean and the Black Seas, in the areas, so in Western Anatolia and also in France, but also, as you see, in the southern areas, also to some extent in the southern areas. So we have Adana, Hatay, and other neighboring regions in the southeast. So some discussion about the institutional transformation. So what is the institutional framework of Turkey's wind transformation? So the Turkish wind transformation actually started relatively recently. So, and it followed the so-called YEKA auction model. So when we're talking about the GECA auction model, it's essentially the creation. GECA in Turkish means renewable energy resource areas. And this is an auction model because so this auction process refers, it's a regulatory paradigm that actually shows the process based on which the works of energy transformations have been allocated. So the tenders actually, and there have been 2 GECA tenders on wind energy. So, and of course the German economy, so German businesses have been very influential, very active, very present when it comes to the wind transformation of the Turkish economy. So we have the first German-Turkish consortium, where you have Siemens and Theocharis, which started the Turkey's first massive wind energy transition in the Marmara region. So this is the region in northwestern Anatolia and in central Turkey in 2017. And the ongoing project is done by Energisa, a Turkish company of which 50% is owned by the German energy leader E.ON, and also Enercon, another German company that specializes in wind energy infrastructure. So do we have any questions until now? Is it clear why green hydrogen, why Turkey, what is a green, so for example, what is a green transition? So you can see it visualized here very clearly. I mean, if you want, after the talk, I can send you also related information also about solar and about hydro, because the data, so it was really easy to geolocate, because I mean, in this energy atlas of Turkey, you have all this information that allow you actually to pinpoint where the wind farms and when the solar panels and where, of course, the hydro plants are situated. And this, of course, gives you, from a research standpoint, a fascinating design, because on the one hand, of course, you can also essentially divide this map into renewable intensive and renewable non-intensive areas, and then essentially explore some outcomes, whether, for example, having lots of wind power farms or lots of solar panels makes a difference for your development, or for all sorts of socio-economic indicators, also, for example, including public health and so on. Okay, so we have all this overview. So now I would like essentially to go to the strategic, the political economy dimension of, don't freak out. I'm not going to really elaborate on this too much. So I just want you to have the concept. I mean, I'm interested in the concept of this model, but I mean, we have to have some kind of little formulas here. It's okay. So what is the political economy aspect of green hydrogen transition? So how it started? So we discussed Russia's war in Ukraine. And then the green hydrogen transition can be a path away from dependence on Russian supplies. So if we're going to model this as a game, so what is this? So a game, it's not a game that we play, obviously, it's a strategic environment, right? So where 2 players interact and they maximize their own interest based on the other player's response. This is essentially the baseline of what we call a strategic interaction. So you know my strategy, I know your strategy, and we both make calculations against each other, and we reach an equilibrium where everybody is happy. So this is essentially and when, of course, when was this whole apparatus developed? It was developed as part of the Manhattan Project, as you know, have you heard the Manhattan Project? What was the Manhattan Project? Who knows the Manhattan Project? Have you seen the Oppenheimer movie? It's a great movie. It's 3 hours, right? But it's great. Have you seen the Oppenheimer movie? So, so you know what the Manhattan Project is, right? Okay, very good. So I liked it because it showed also some shots from Berkeley, where Oppenheimer was a physics professor. So I've lived in Berkeley, I've studied there for 5 years. So yeah. Okay, so, and of course it was so von Neumann and Morgenstern, two mathematicians at Princeton, developed game theory in order essentially to advise the American government whether to throw the bomb on Japan, which they eventually ended up doing. Anyway, but this created also a positive externality, which allows us to model strategic behavior. So here, let's say that we have two players. Let's actually see the green hydrogen transition as an equilibrium choice, as an equilibrium that is produced from the interaction between a resource-rich dictatorship and a resource-poor but technologically advanced democracy. So we abstract from the current situation, let's say, between Russia and Germany. We don't call it Russia and Germany. We say we have a resource-rich dictatorship and a resource-poor but technologically advanced democracy. And we have all these important variables and sets. So basically, the payoff, the transition probabilities, the discount rate. I mean, this you can ignore. What is very important is the variable zeta, which proxies the degree of global political risk. So what we call state variable in economics is like an exogenous condition. So because when I'm playing with you this strategic game, there is one parameter that none of us controls, right? So this comes like from the sky, like manna from the sky, and it falls on our shoulders. And then we need to do something about it, but nobody can control it. It's not endogenous. If one of us can control it, it's called endogenous. This is exogenous. This comes from the outside, it's a shock. And this shock, this zeta, can be high or low. If it is high, then we really must do something. If it is low, then usually we do nothing. So here we have different parameters. So we take the tax rate, because of course in every economy we need to account for taxes. We have the per capita technological and energy endowments of the democracy and the dictatorship. We have the marginal costs of energy and technology acquisition. We have the cost function of providing a per capita public good in a democracy and a dictatorship. So here we see actually the map of all variables that show us why energy matters. Energy matters because it is used to offer public goods. Can we have education without energy? No. Can we have defense without energy? No. So many things that we cannot. So energy is crucial for the provision of public goods, but of course energy is also costly, and also of course there is also an implicit contract between a democracy and a dictatorship. So the democracy says, I want energy, and the dictatorship says, okay, I want technology. So, and this is, you trade, right? So you give technology, you get energy, and vice versa. So once we have set up this map of variables that actually show how energy matters for both players, then what do we see? That so the first proposition, the first argument that I make here, so is that interdependence is costly both for a technology producing democracy and and energy-rich dictatorships. Of course, it is costly for both of us. It's not a free, there is no, it's not free for either of the players, clearly, right? I mean, this is something very basic, and we state it. And if this condition holds, so what does this, so this, for example, these are, we have, so this is democracy, so what do we observe? So this is, these are two partial derivatives on both sides with respect to what? With respect to kappa, which is the technology endowment, and with respect to epsilon, which is the energy endowment. So we see that both economies, both the democracy and the dictatorship, want to provide public goods, and of course this public goods provision depends on what? Depends on technology and energy endowment. So to provide the public good, you need both technology and energy. But how does this interdependence becomes a bit more specific? So if this inequality holds, then interdependence is relatively costlier for democracy, for the democracy in our game rather than for the dictatorship. If it is the other way around, it is more costly for the dictatorship than for the democracy. So essentially, interdependence is costly for both, but it is not costly, it may not be costly in the same size for each of the players. So it can be the case that it is costlier for the democracy than the dictatorship, it can be the other way around. Okay, so this is a first argument that is the first punchline of the model, which essentially implies what? Implies that exactly this condition shows that we can have different types of equilibria, depending on whether interdependence is more costly for player one or player two, whether interdependence can be more costly for the democracy or the dictatorship. And here we have actually the math, which I think is much more interesting than the math, because it actually shows you, and I have some math slides following, which I will skip. And so basically this tree here shows you everything you need to know. So the first N is what? Is nature. Is this stochastic component that defines everything in life, also the economies of the planet. So oftentimes when we want essentially to describe randomness, so we start everything with a random step. I mean, epistemologically, you can call it as you want. So it may be God, it may be nature, it can be whatever you want, right? So then we have this high and low. So this goes to the level of political risk, this zeta. So is our zeta high or is our zeta low? So I like zeta because, I mean, obviously I know the Greek alphabet pretty well. So zeta is connected to life. So Zoe is life. So I like this kind of approach. So yeah, so what do we observe here? What is very interesting is to see the sequencing of the moves. What is the sequencing here? So let's take the high path. So in the high path, the democracy. So essentially, what is very important to see is how do the moves act? How do the moves? So exactly. So how do the moves develop? So we have, so the first player, so So democracy makes an offer to the dictatorship. So this D goes for democracy, this A goes for authoritarian regime. So then, so makes an offer vector of a combination of technology and energy. So I'm offering to this vector. A vector is like a basket. Do you like the basket? The authoritarian regime may say, no, I don't like it. Okay, then we fight. Then we have conflict ex ante. Before we even start, we just start fighting. If the dictatorship wants this offer, this basket offered by the democracy, then what? Then the dictator says, okay, I will check that, but what I want is also to make a counter offer. So I accept what your initial proposal, but I'm interested in also making a counter proposal. And then what does the democracy? And I can make two different types of proposals. I can make a proposal that takes us here, or I can make a proposal that takes us there. So what is the difference between these two proposals? So the counter proposal is that you can either have high energy and low technology, or you can have low energy and high technology. So you can flip the two variables and make two different proposals. So, and then what are the possible outcomes here? It depends, of course, on whether there is an acceptance. So if you have high, low, or low, high, and then the other player, the democracy again, comes to decide. If it decides to reject it, then we have the green hydrogen transition equilibrium, because otherwise, so we have the green hydrogen transition equilibrium, this is the argument. If it decides to accept, we will have the fossil fuel rent seeking, so basically what we used to have until now in the German-Russian partnership. And if we go that way, things look a bit more funny and intense. We either have conflict ex post or constrained sustainability. So this, and we see that the equilibria are the same with the two different levels of global political risk, low or high. I mean, here we model this level of political risk in a binary way, so it's either 1 or 0, it's either high or low, but I mean, if you are mathematically or whatever versed, you can do it as a continuous variable, you can do it as difficult as you want. So these are, long story short, these are the 4 equilibrium outcomes. So here, I mean, I'm not going to spend so much time here with the models. I mean, if you want to essentially see, or if you want some, if you find this interesting, you can always write me, so I can explain you what this means, or you can come to my classes where I do some of this stuff as well, but not too much. So here we have, so what do we have here? We have the solution of what I have shown you. So here we actually put in writing what I have just described you, that we actually have 4 equilibria. We provide also, I mean, I have of course skipped several of the mathematical processes, but, so what we do here as part of the computation of the model, we come up with a threshold value for zeta. So if you are above the threshold, then you are more likely to actually choose conflict exposed or constrained sustainability. And if you are below or at the threshold of zeta, then the outcomes are going to be green hydrogen transition or fossil fuel rent seeking. So obviously this model has been just, I wanted to push you to think in terms of strategic choices, how the selection of an energy path can be a strategic outcome for both a resource-rich dictatorship and a technologically advanced democracy. So now we continue our discussion in the direction of policy. So I'm sure that you have heard of the Wasserstoff diplomatie by Mrs. Baerbock. I mean, she has been a big proponent of this. Have you heard about it? Have you heard about the Wasserstoff diplomatie? So Germany has opened actually offices of green hydrogen advice in Saudi Arabia, in Nigeria, before the war also in Moscow, also now in Kiev. So have you heard about this initiative? The green hydrogen as an important component of German foreign policy. So yes, it is. It is a very important one. And so hydrogen diplomacy is a core element of the relations between Germany and several emerging markets. So I mentioned already Saudi Arabia and Nigeria, right? But also Turkey. So green hydrogen is an important component also of the internal energy strategy of the European Union. And the European Union has already invested more than $4.5 billion in the development of green hydrogen technologies. And we see also a very positive projection about Germany's hydrogen energy demand. And since the majority of hydrogen supplies will have to be imported, the German growth depends, of course, also on carefully crafted political alliances. So the European Commission's hydrogen strategy identifies the production of green hydrogen as a key priority for the EU. But of course, it also acknowledges that blue hydrogen may be first. Although, of course, this plan has now been partially revised because the necessity of green hydrogen is becoming much more acute. So the European Clean Hydrogen Alliance is the policy platform that implements this path. And this is also crucial for the European Union's also new industrial policy. So we're talking about a really cosmogonic change. So, however, the most crucial phase actually starts now, and it's between 2025 and 2030, a time in which the European Union should install 40 gigawatt of green hydrogen electrolyzers that would have the capacity to produce 10 million tons of green hydrogen. So this is essentially, this last point actually shows you the magnitude and the importance of green hydrogen transitions for the EU. So if the EU remains and it has remained the center of developments on green hydrogen, I mean, we will see a map in a minute, followed by China. And there is also a strategic significance of Europe and the Asia Pacific when it comes to the key destinations of global hydrogen supplies. I mean, China and the EU, of course, and also Korea. So the Asia Pacific region, we have also Australia. These are both very important parts of the world economy. So collaborative nature, of course, there is also collaborative nature of green hydrogen transitions. Already I mentioned Australia, so Oceania, and also Western Europe and the emerging markets may contribute to this. and which actually will transform energy pricing. Of course, you can ask why emerging markets? Obviously, because green hydrogen transitions, the way they are envisioned by Europe and Germany, are to take place in a cooperative nature. So, and here we have essentially the map. So what do we observe here? So we have hydrogen strategies. So we observe that several major economies around the globe have developed hydrogen strategies. So the green hydrogen is an important component. So we had a couple of weeks ago the discussion with Sebastian Sik. So you see that Uzbekistan, a major economy in Central Asia, is also a key player in that respect. We have Saudi Arabia, Oman, Egypt, and inside the EU is we have several economies, almost most of the economies of the EU. So we have also Japan and South Korea, China, Russia, of course, Australia, New Zealand. Turkey is not there, but essentially this is what makes Turkey also, in my opinion, very interesting and an amazing opportunity, and essentially an El Dorado for European policy. So here we have all the possible hydrogen trade routes, plans, and agreements. So you see here the potential. So of course, all this is still in the area of planning and projection, but of course, this is also a very important part of the process. So we have new routes in place or under development. We have a memorandum of understanding, MOUs, establishing trade routes, and we have potential trade routes explicitly mentioned in public strategies. So we see essentially the development of a global network that has Europe in its core. Moreover, let's see where we have the largest green hydrogen projects. Western Europe is number one. Kazakhstan, again, Central Asia. So that's why we want to develop the focus of the Institute on Central Asia again. So you saw Uzbekistan before, now you see Kazakhstan, the other big economy. Third, Australia. 4, Mauritania. 5 Australia again. 6, Oman. 7, Germany. And Saudi Arabia is number 20, the last in that list. So a very important, of course, the role of water is very important because for the creation of green hydrogen, because you not only need renewable-based electricity, you also need desalinated water. And of course, desalinated water, so water from lakes or rivers, is much more scarce than seawater. And one major target of innovation right now is to actually make seawater usable for the process of electrolysis. So, of course, the inclusion of Africa, Latin America, and Eurasia in the EU and German global hydrogen diplomacy is important. And this regionalization of energy relations, that world regions really become, so the global south becomes core in this process. It's actually an amazing opportunity, a unique opportunity for Turkey due to its strategic location between East and West, and also the emerging competition between China and the EU. Many analysts say that the big economic competitor of China will not be the US, but the EU. And they have some very valid arguments for it. So So let's see now also the heat map of water stress levels. So of course, the picture is not, so we do have, so in several parts of Europe, we have high or medium water stress levels. Turkey is also an area of high water stress level. So, and of course, the discussion is, so how could Turkey transform into a regional leader in green hydrogen? By using the comparative advantage of low-cost renewable power production. So this strategic partnership can produce spillovers in other policy areas and regional economic cooperation. But of course, this global hydrogen strategy should be and must be part of a new trade strategy between Europe and Turkey. And of course, EU conditionality when it comes to democracy and the rule of law may generate challenges for an extensive cooperation with Turkey in the area of energy trade. So, so what is of course very important is also to see, so we have seen policy developments in the European Union. Now let's see a bit policy developments in Turkey in the same direction. So what is Turkey doing as green hydrogen becomes a core strategic choice for the European Union? So Turkey committed to a zero emissions target, of course, by 2053, and held its first climate council in 2022. And it also proposed strategic goals to become a major player, including lower emissions with green hydrogen utilization, and also research and development of hydrogen production and transportation. So, and here we have two more interesting maps. On the left-hand side, we have hydrogen costs from hybrid solar, photovoltaic panels, and onshore wind systems in the long run. So here we have, so the more red means, low, so yeah, it's low, and blue means high. And here we have the photovoltaic electricity potential, where Turkey also scores very well. What is very important, I mean, so essentially then we can ask, then what is really so then how actually do we have any concrete policy proposals? I mean, there have been already discussions in Turkey about the location, so where can we actually make the green hydrogen hub in Turkey? And based on research that has been done, there is a proposal of the Bandırma energy base. Bandırma is a city close to Istanbul on the Marmara region, as you can see. And so an Enerjisa, a company that is also very active in energy transitions, is actually proposing that base as a launching pad to produce green hydrogen, green methanol, and ammonia for research and development. And of course, what are the advantages of the site? There are two natural power plants at the base, and also a strategic good geographic position to export green hydrogen to Europe. So it's close to Greece and Bulgaria and the borders, and that way the borders of the European Union. So what could be the policy recommendations that one could, we are making in this research? Of course, this is all open to discussion, but I mean, these are some baseline findings. So the main policy objective would be to transform Turkey into a green hydrogen hub that can supply both the EU and the MENA region, so the Middle East and North Africa. So I will just mention some of them. So, and of course, what is also very important is the promotion of long-term power purchase agreements as an additional incentive for this energy trade, the green hydrogen trade between Turkey and the EU, and also investment, European investment in electrolyzer manufacturing in Turkey should be supported or can be supported to meet the upcoming domestic demand, and also allow for exports to the EU itself. What is also possible is the consideration of an EU-Turkey hydrogen delivery infrastructure in the form of a pipeline. I mean, the same model that has been agreed with Norway. So, and of course, the question is where the money is going to come from. So, of course, the main bulk of renewable funding and green hydrogen funding comes from centralizing initiatives, so top-down financing schemes, but also the introduction of bottom-up financing schemes with the participation of local banks, regional and local governments, and international institutions is also a very important and crucial strategy. But of course, this, I mean, for example, the creation of a renewable or a regional renewables fund for Turkey is very important. But of course, this would require also domestic reforms in Turkey itself. I mean, this is also a big challenge that one must take into account. So, and to conclude, and to give some time for questions. So there is a strong role, we have a strong potential role for green hydrogen for the EU and Turkey in the light of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So the model of the strategic gain that I presented shows that the green hydrogen transition can compensate the welfare losses occurred due to Russia's aggression. And Turkey has the potential, the strategic potential to competitively supply green hydrogen to the EU, and that way also strengthen its own regional and strategic leverage. So the EU, German, and Turkish commitment to a zero emissions target create those political economic conditions, and of course, for the advancement of both the EU and Turkish economies. So thank you very much for this for your attention, and then I'm happy to hear your questions. So any questions, points that you